Now, people that know me well enough know that this is a video that I would kill to make. Time and time again, I will talk about this man at any given opportunity. But over the past kind of half hour, things have developed a little, apparently. We're going to talk about it all. We're going to talk about it from a realistic point of view. And we're going to see if genuinely it could be a possibility for Celtic to explore. According to some football journalists, an approach has been made. How trustworthy is that? Can we believe that? Let's talk about the special one. Let's talk about Jose Mourinho. Right then, as I said, the past kind of half hour has been a start in the Celtic managerial conversation. We've had our kind of heart and heads set on Eddie Howe for the past few weeks now. We've been waiting for a supposed announcement which is yet to come. We're still waiting to hear from the new CEO, Dominic Mackay. We're still to hear anything that would give us any sort of indication as to who and when a manager will be announced. And now another name has been thrown into the ring. Now this was always going to happen. And people who are watching from outside a Celtic support will laugh at these sort of kind of links. They will, and ultimately I understand that. Jose Mourinho is the biggest manager in the modern game. He's won everything, he's done everything. He's simply, as he calls himself, the special one. He's an amazing manager. For him to be linked with a club like Celtic after managing the likes of Real Madrid, Inter Milan, Manchester United, to be then linked with Celtic seems a far stretch, and reasonably people will laugh at that because it just doesn't seem like it will add up. Now Celtic are a massive club, but in terms of finances, the league that they play in and their European standing in the modern game, it just seems like a very unrealistic proposition for Jose Mourinho to be Celtic manager. But it has came up and it was always going to happen. He was sacked from Spurs on Monday there. And we were just waiting. It was only a matter of days before he was linked with the job. Because why? Because he was linked with it the last time it was open. When Brendan Rodgers left Celtic back in 2019, Jose Mourinho's name was apparently one that could have been up there with a shout of the job. He was fresh off the back of being sacked by Manchester United. He wanted to get back into football, so Celtic was an option then, as it is now. So what are the crucials here in this story? Who's saying what? Can we trust in it? Let's keep ourselves on the ground. Let's keep it realistic. Jose Mourinho to Celtic is a pipe dream, but let's talk about the information that we have been given. I personally first seen the story through the Daily Record, who broke it after it was given out by Duncan Castles of the Transfer Window podcast, a guy who is a football journalist. He's not just some bloke like me who sits here with a podcast from their house in Denison. It's not that kind of situation we're talking about here. We're talking about a reputable football journalist who reported the news earlier. He reported at about 6:10 this evening that all three of these teams, Celtic, Roma and Valencia, are interested in the services of Jose Mourinho as their next manager, and apparently Celtic have made an approach to Jose Mourinho in the bid to make him the man who's going to be in the Celtic dugout next season. The report suggests that Celtic were actually the first club to make contact with Mourinho's representatives following his sacking. And that is up to you if you want to believe or not believe that. I, for one, I'm someone who, it could be very much true, but I'm going to remain grounded about it. Just because Celtic could make an approach does not mean it's going to happen, does not mean that Celtic are realistically going to go for it. An inquiry could be anything, an approach could be anything. It could be to find out what the money situation will be like. There's positives to talk about surrounding that if it is true, but it doesn't mean that it's going to happen. And I know there'll be Rangers fans going, you wish Mourinho at Celtic. Of course that's going to be the reaction. I think anybody who knows Jose Mourinho and his pedigree will of course say that, as I've already said in this video. But it could be very much a possibility for Celtic to explore that, and I said that on the most recent edition of the podcast. Why not ask the question? I know it's pie in the sky, I know it's probably never going to happen, but if you pose the question, it shows ambition, but you never know what the answer will be. You never know what Jose Mourinho wants to do for his next job. He says he wants to be in football, he's always in football. Mourinho is the kind of character who want to be back as quickly as possible. Celtic could allow him that outlet. It's a team that I think works for him in terms of the fan base, in terms of the kind of stature of the club. It could be something that suits Mourinho, but let's remain grounded. Just because an approach has been made doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything's going to happen. At least asking the question is a positive though. Let's talk about that. If the question has been asked, and that's the big if, you know, I'm not going to go over that many times, but if the question has been asked, it's a real sign of ambition from Celtic, and it's a real sign of a good intent of the direction we're going to go in. We want the club to move forward in the biggest positive step they can. We don't want to get an appointment like a Roy Keane. We don't want someone who moves the club backwards. We want someone who moves it forwards. Now, I'm not having any of this Mourinho is done patter, Mourinho is washed out, Mourinho would be useless. My thoughts and views on Jose Mourinho are very clear. I've voiced them on Twitter a million times. I've voiced them in this video and in this channel. He's one of, if not the greatest manager of the modern game. You take away kind of Alex Ferguson's tenure inside that period, who's better than him? Maybe Pep Guardiola, and that's all. He's not done. Only 3 teams got more points than him while he was at Spurs, and that was Manchester City, Liverpool and Manchester United. It has tenure at Spurs, only 3 teams. The myth of him being finished, the myth of him parking the bus all the time is something that annoys me. You only need to read the game and watch the game and understand the game to realise that that's simply not true. To realise that he's not a park the bus manager. A lot of people are still hurt by the tactics and such that he deployed against Celtic back in Seville. I understand it's a sore one, but it's a club that ultimately we should be taking the best steps to move forward, and if Mourinho was an option, we certainly should be taking that option. The park the bus stuff is nonsense. Go back and look at his stats and goals per game. Go back and look at how he's won league titles. I think at Real Madrid at one point they were averaging 3.8 goals per game in the La Liga season. And he's always been in the top 1 or 2 of those sort of criterias. Parking the bus in certain games and certain scenarios has worked for Mourinho, and it's the reason he's the manager he is. People don't like what he done against Celtic because it was against Celtic, and I can understand that. I wasn't old enough to be hurt by that day in that game. But the fact is, you would kill for that to be at Celtic. You'd kill to win a cup final in any circumstance, and he's got the tactics and the mentality to do so. So I hate this myth that goes around that he's a park the bus, declining manager. It's not the case. Mourinho's someone who will adapt with the game, and he had signs of that at Spurs. It just never came to fruition at the end, and things just kind of stumbled from bad to worse. But fresh beginnings for Celtic and for Jose Mourinho could be a very exciting prospect. But listen, I'm talking like it's a formality that's going to happen. It's not something that realistically will. It's something that we can only take with a pinch of salt as time moves on. Now, the reason that Celtic is a bit more reasonable this time round and a bit more of a realistic suggestion is because of the clause in his Tottenham contract upon his termination. He's been placed on gardening leave, and because of the way that they'll have to make up for stuff in terms of finances, then the move that Mourinho goes to next in terms of Spurs' situation favours a kind of smaller club. It wouldn't be a Real Madrid or a Juventus or anything like that. It would have to be a club of a kind of smaller stature, and that's why you see the likes of Roma, Valencia and Celtic being thrown into that ring for the names of teams because of the financial implications that surround this gardening leave that Mourinho was on. I very much am in the camp of throw everything you can at it if it's a possibility, but look, I'm understanding that it's not. Eddie Howe is a much more realistic possibility, and I'm still in the mindset that Eddie Howe will be the next Celtic manager. If this is true, if this news is true today and Mourinho has been contacted by Celtic, I'm extremely happy with the Celtic board for trying to conduct that sort of business, and if it can go further, then I would urge them to pursue it further. Do I think it will happen? No. I can't reiterate that enough. For people who are going to just see the title of the video, see the thumbnail and claim that I'm saying Mourinho's going to be the next Celtic manager, I can't reiterate enough. I don't think it will happen. But there is no way you can turn your nose up at a manager of that quality. To wrap up the video and to wrap up my views on the whole managerial situation altogether, just to throw this in, as we've spoken about on the podcast a couple of times now, I'm just kind of sick of the rumours flying in and out. At the same time, I'm also sick of the lack of rumours. Ultimately, what I'm sick of is the time this has taken. Celtic relieved Neil Lennon of his duties back in February. We are now towards the end of April and no progress seems to be made. I don't know what's happening behind the scenes, but we have just employed Dominic Mackay as the CEO. He started on Monday and we have heard nothing in regards to this. The new season will be creeping upon us. European qualification will be creeping upon us. Celtic need to do something. And paper talk with rumours isn't going to give us anything. So we need to do something. A statement has to be made. It's surely going to be how, but the longer it goes on, the more you start to doubt it. So I'm just annoyed at how long it's all kind of taken. Anyway, there you go, Jose Mourinho. Could it happen? You can only wish, you can only dream that the special one would grace Celtic Park. I know a lot of people are against it, but I just don't see the sense in ever going against someone like Mourinho in his name and stature in the game, and someone who is literally one of the greats. You know, how can you pass up that sort of opportunity for him to manage the club? Let bygones be bygones. If you're still hurt about Seville, you know, he'd done what he'd done to win the game. He got his trophy, and ultimately that's what led him to the point he is now as a manager, one of the greats. Of course, I would love us to get a bit of payback at some point against Mourinho, but I wouldn't do that by sacrificing the chance of having him as manager. But let's keep grounded, let's keep realistic. I think Mourinho is pie in the sky. We'll see what happens as days go on. Like and subscribe. I'll see you all next time.